Hi, welcome to another episode of our Creative Careers series here at Let's Be Creative with LBC. Today I am talking with Cara Richards, who is a librarian and is going to tell us about how the arts intersect with her work there. So welcome, Cara. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I am a librarian. I have a master's degree in library science, and I actually am known as an emerging technologies librarian. So it's a really cool title, and what it really means is I run our makerspace, which is a place where people can come in and create. So we've got things like a 3D printer, a silhouette cameo that can cut out paper, vinyl, other kinds of materials like that, a laser etcher, and just other various tools.
How many, obviously everything is a little bit different right now with the shutdown, but how often were people using that?
So it's something fairly new and people are still kind of finding out about it, but and we're also kind of more rural than other areas. We were getting around like 20 people or so a month, but it was picking up more and more. And in December, I actually had well over 50 or so with programming and everything, just because people are making Christmas presents, and uh, the programs were about Christmas decorations and that kind of stuff.
Awesome. So I love how in your work as, I think a lot of times people hear the word librarian and they just have this image in their mind of, oh, it's just the person who checks out books for you. But libraries are such a source of community resources and community arts building. And so I'd like to, talk a little bit about your journey to get here. You said you have a master's degree in this. Were you always interested in librarian work, and when did it transition into this more this tech and artsy interest in it as well? So tell us a little bit about you and how you got here.
Well, I would say I've always been involved with libraries since I was a kid. My mom used to take me pretty much every day after school. I was involved with clubs at our local library too, but I never really considered it until after I graduated college. I even worked in the library at college, and I had friends that would tease me and just be like, oh, you should just be a librarian. You should stop what you're doing, and you're perfect to be a librarian. But yeah, it wasn't until I graduated and was like, well, what do I do now with my degree? I got a degree at Huntington University in digital media arts, focusing in animation. And I actually, a lot of times, focused in stop motion animation, which is where you take characters, either puppet, clay, paper, whatever kind of material you're using, and you take pictures of it, move it a little bit, take a picture of it, move it a little bit, and it creates the illusion of movement. So I actually use that still in my job today, teaching kids how to do it, or even adults if they're interested in it. But after I graduated, I was like, there's nothing really around where I live. I don't really want to move out to California because that's days away from my family. And yeah, I just didn't know what to do. So I kind of took a year, and then there was a job opening as a assistant at our local library, Defiance Public Library. And I thought, yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. And I tried it out. I got the job. I was very surprised that I got it. And then, so within the first year I was there, I moved up to being an associate. So that meant I started doing the programming for school-age children, and that was a lot of fun. It's almost like being a teacher, but you don't have that kind of degree. And it's also like doing youth group kind of stuff, because you're playing games, you're doing all kinds of fun things. And I did a lot of creative stuff with that too. So I, at some point, was like, yeah, I could do this for the rest of my life, and decided to get my master's degree. And as soon as I got my master's degree, they decided, well, I have that background in technology and animation. So they were like, you'd be perfect for doing our makerspace, which is something that the library was looking at building. the original person that had started doing that ended up moving because her husband got a job in another state and they had to go. So I kind of just jumped into this role that I just had free reign, and I didn't really know where I was going. But it's been an amazing process so far.
Yeah, so you got to actually build this from the kind of from the
Yeah,
ground up. You got to make decisions
yeah.
about what were some of the things that you were, when you first were kind of given this opportunity, some of the first things that you thought, oh, I definitely want to make sure we have this included in there.
Well, so I didn't actually get the say on some of the equipment that came in because it had already been purchased with that previous person, but I've been able to do grants to get some money in. So it's not only are you creating stuff, you're going to come up with concepts that and write like papers about how this will help the community and get money from corporations or other organizations like that. And so I wrote a grant for one of the community organizations, and I got the laser etcher, which was something I really wanted to add because it's something very high interest and very interesting to use. I've also wanted to make sure that the space is available for all ages. A lot of makerspaces won't let younger kids in, I've noticed, but I want to make sure that kids can come in and create no matter what. I do require that kids do have a parent signature just so that the parents know that they're coming in, and if they're under 10, they have an adult with them because some of the equipment can be a little dangerous.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I love that you kind of transitioned from from maybe a more traditionally artistic career into another career where you're still using some of those same skills. When you transitioned, what were some of the specifically arts related skills maybe from your previous education that came in really handy, and what were some skills that you had to learn to really get better at this new role?
So some of the important skills that I had from my education were my video editing skills and just graphic design skills because I make flyers advertising the programs I have going on. I'll make videos showing like what kind of things that we have available through the library. So we've got different databases and resources, kind of like lynda.com, and I make videos on those showing how to use them and how we have those things available. Some of the things I did need to learn was just using some of the equipment that I had never used before. So like the 3D printer, a lot of that has been trial and error and looking things up on YouTube and the forums for that kind of equipment. Um, Also the silhouette, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to do different things. And then even just taking those ideas and creating my own ideas from them.
Is there any stuff that that is still on like your wish list for someday? I would like to make sure and include this in our space as well.
Oh, I have tons of stuff that I'd love to add. Eventually, if I can ever get a larger space, because right now we're working with very limited space. Our library is over 100 years old, so it's not like we can really easily build on to it. But if I can ever get more space, I'd like to add a lot more of like traditional making equipment, so like saws, uh, even a planer, a lathe, that kind of stuff, so people can do some kind of woodworking included. I'd also like to do a recording area. We do have like some small equipment for that and a kind of temporary booth, but that stuff really doesn't have a home where it can just live at any time and be used. They have to specifically ask for it and it has to get brought up and set up each time. But yeah, I'd love to add those kind of things. A green screen.
Oh yeah, no, and one of the things that I love about this is that is that as you pull this together, you are making so many opportunities for people who don't have this equipment at home, because this equipment can be expensive, requires a lot of space, requires some knowledge in how to use it. And so even if you're not in there making something yourself, you are helping other people make things. And I think a lot of times people think of things like woodworking not necessarily as artistic, but it absolutely is. It's part of you're making something, you're making something beautiful or something functional. And I think that's really cool to be in a position to be able to provide that and offer that and facilitate that for an entire community. I do want to ask, this is kind of a specialized position, but I'm sure there are people who are watching this who think, oh, I want to be able to be in that position, to be able to run that kind of space. Yeah, do you know, I know you transitioned from it from a librarian standpoint on up. Is that how, to your knowledge, how it typically would work if somebody wanted to run this kind of thing within their community?
I think as long as you're working with that kind of equipment, in whatever realm it may be, so like using computers, using 3D printers, experimenting with crafting and creating, it does really help you get into that kind of position. In order to be a technical librarian, you do have to have a degree in library science. But there are many positions in libraries that do not have the library science degree, or even if you have a master's degree in something else, it can transfer over. Usually if you don't have the librarian degree, they'll call you an associate.
Huh. Okay. And then as our final thing, obviously right now, a lot of places are closed. People can't go out to these kinds of spaces and make things because just for safety, we've closed those things down for the time being. What might be something that, that somebody who might be interested in doing this in the future, what would be a small thing that they could do at home that they could learn or pick up another skill that would be useful for this later in life?
So some things that you can do is you can start thinking about creative design thinking, even engineering thinking. There are plenty of online resources for that kind of stuff. You can find YouTube tutorials. Tinkercad is a great website for that kind of stuff. It's a 3D design software. It's more geared towards kids, but it's really great for beginners. I use it a lot in the makerspace, and it just kind of gives you that idea of how you're designing in a 3D space and figuring out how things work in 3D space. So like you can identify a problem of something that you have in your home and then take that problem and be like, what kind of solution can I make? And create something in 3D. You might draw it out first in 2D and then create it in 3D, a solution to that problem.
I think that's fantastic. And if anybody does this and starts designing stuff out, please go ahead and share those in the comments. I would love to hear what kinds of things you are being able to make and creatively create just with the stuff that is in your home, with the resources that we have available. Fantastic. Cara, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about this.
Yeah, no problem. And I love sharing with the community and getting people creating. That's one thing I really miss with everything shut down, is being able to work with people to create what they want.
Yeah, and we're all crossing our fingers for that to reopen first, so we can get back out into our community, into our maker spaces and our shops to be able to continue creating. Awesome. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to tune in again tomorrow at 1 p.m. for more Let's Be Creative arts content. Bye.